Hi, Tatiana. Thank you so much for joining this conversation about living with lockdown. How are you? How are you feeling today?
Hi, Ro. Thank you. Thank you for having me for this conversation. I'm feeling well. I started the morning with an early bike ride with my family to the forest. So we're very lucky we live, very close to the forest. And before all the dog owners go out, so we tend to go on a quick mountain biking ride.
Sounds brilliant, and the weather's perfect for it, isn't it? Um,
Yeah,
Before we actually get into this, conversation about lockdown and what it's meant for you, I think it'd be really nice if you could give our viewers a little brief introduction, a glimpse into who you are, and what excites you.
sure. So who am I? My name is Tatiana. I'm a Russian, but who lived in Germany, US, and UK. And after very long, over 20 years career in financial services across those three countries, and quite a lot of what people would describe as success, which I achieved there. I took courage to move to something which gives me much more happiness, and I was happy in my job before at the different stages. However, what I didn't realize for a very long time, and I only probably realized after I took the step out, how burnt out I was without even noticing it myself or paying attention to my body,
Mm.
because I almost overstayed what felt true for me. And yes, it's almost like that success helped me in a way in a lockdown, and it felt very scary to move to something which would give me more satisfaction, because it felt that everything what I achieved happened by fluke, and it would be very difficult to recreate it.
Yeah. Do you also feel that success sometimes almost, masks the underlying pain you're feeling? Because you feel that outwardly everything is going well, so you tend to then ignore maybe the signs your body is giving you that all is not well, because you're looking at the external trappings of success and you think, well, it must be going well because look, I've got all of this.
Yes, I think when we work so hard for something, and we achieve what society and what might be us ourselves dreamt of 10 years ago, then yes, it very easily could hide something else which we're striving for, or which our soul wants to get. But yeah, it's almost I think it's very important to be grateful, but sometimes, as with a lot of other things, too much gratitude could have another side, so it's and I felt at that time, I thought, well, I should be grateful. I work 4 days a week on a trading floor as an MD in a job which comes very easy to me, and I make good money. I should be grateful, and it's almost like this feeling of gratitude and status kept me captured almost.
Yeah. Do you know, we've talked about this once before and I absolutely love it. And I want to revisit the whole concept of gratitude because it's such a big thing. And, a lot of people rightly believe that having gratitude is a big part of, feeling more fulfilled. But it has a darker side to it, which I would love to explore a bit later on in this conversation. So just, to complete your introduction, so you felt burnt out, you felt, your body was telling you something was not right. And
Well,
you took,
actually, I didn't even realize I was burnt out, Ross. So that's the whole thing. So my body was sending me signals, but I didn't realize at that time that that's what it was.
right. And so what was the trigger for you to make a change? So tell us a bit more about what that was and what you do now.
So the trigger at that time was one day I literally came into the office and I realized, and I was leading a sales team, and I was closing trades in 100 millions sterling, even more, like we're selling 5 billion deals. And I realized that it feels to me that I'm almost trading potatoes or apples. And rather than, and then I asked actually myself, when did I last time had this feeling of excitement and adrenaline, which I used to have before when I was closing the deal? And I realized it hasn't been for a while.
Yeah.
And that kind of was the moment when I thought, well, it's all nice and good, but it's my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, for what am I giving every day away without getting a joy?
Yes. Yeah. So that was the moment you realized maybe something wasn't right. And was it immediately obvious to you what you would be doing instead if you were not doing that anymore?
Well, I have always had a very strong interest in supporting people and leaders. So growing people in my team, and also actually, supporting other leaders around me. In fact, without using the right words at that time for the definition of that, I was coaching my own manager in both dealing with his personal life, but also helping him to establish relationships with other parts of the bank. So and during my probably like last years in finance, I was developing much more so scientific interest in human behavior and psychology. So I knew that there is something in psychology that I'd like to explore further. So and as a result, I just took the opportunity of booking myself onto Henley Business School executive coaching course called Professional Certificate in Coaching. And of course, as a leader in banking, as a woman leader in banking, I did have introduction to coaching through being part of senior woman sponsorship program, and working also with my own coach, who actually used to be my client before in finance. So yes, so I was aware of that. What I was aware that I actually have been supporting leaders for over 20 years already. What I didn't realize before I finished my qualification, before I started my qualification, is that I do have a real gift and intuition in seeing what is underneath the question. And also I didn't know yet how much joy do I personally get as well by seeing people moving closer to their potential.
Yeah.
And becoming unstuck.
Yeah. And that neatly brings us on to this very, testing situation that we find ourselves in, and I think, you know, you probably agree with me that it's demanding a different kind of leadership, isn't it, on a corporate level, but also politically it's demanding a very different kind of leadership, because so much ahead of us is unknown. And, you know, with a lot more people having to work from home or remotely, you know, how leaders gather the troops, as it were, and, you know, get them to sort of have a shared purpose is going to be very different. Do you have any thoughts on how equipped, you know, some of the big companies are in managing this?
Well, what I think what such type of crisis creates, I mean, first of all, on the subject of crisis, you know, there is a very good expression which says never miss a crisis, right?
Yes.
So crisis always brings some new opportunities with it. And of course, it's a very difficult time and it's unprecedented. And in the first stage, we kind of go through the stage of chaos and business of sorting out of, you know, of kind of new arrangements, right?
Yeah.
And I think what happens is in such type of stage and a process that the issues that which existed before, they get amplified. So if the business was already had some underlying struggle in communication, in finance, that's all going to be amplified even more.
Mm.
So, and I think that's almost like that's disadvantage and advantage of the crisis, right?
Yeah.
And then how to get through that stage, and then also moving to the concept of acceptance. And actually, this is a very nice system which one of my, you know, colleagues shared, you know, in the program in which I am. It's called Think Shift, and it's those 3 stages of chaos, acceptance, and new reality. And, you know, it's how to move through those stages and then actually see how this new reality brings also new opportunities.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in banking, for example, I have been struggling, or I have been trying to change some rigidness in approaches to the flexibility of work environment. You know, like, obviously I was lucky enough to pursue 4 days a week opportunity, and I got it, but a lot of other people were not able to do it in front office. In the same way, arrangement of coming slightly later to the office, we're speaking about 7:30 versus 7:45, or, you know, and resistance of organizations to accept that because that's what we have done always, or because of what's known. And as a result, what it does, we're all different individuals. So, and as a result, actually, this is what also, lack of ability to give people flexibility to work in the way how it works best for them, actually kills trust and kills diversity. So, and I think what happens right now, it's kind of almost like a paradox. The finance now has to accept remote working.
Yes.
The question is what is going to happen on the other side of that?
You mean when we come out
Yes.
of this crisis,
Yes,
whether we're going to go
exactly,
back to the old
exactly.
ways? Yes, I think that's going to be so interesting to watch, and I think, you know, what is clear is that most employees want to feel like they are trusted, that they have autonomy, that they know that they can take ownership of the small piece of work that they do, and not have somebody constantly looking over their shoulders, right? And it feels like this is such a great opportunity for employees to prove that they are worthy of that kind of trust, and that they are worthy of, you know, being given that freedom even when this artificial situation does not persist. But whether we have that or not, I think we'll find out very soon. What I want to do now is talk about how you are personally dealing with the lockdown. So has there been much change in the way your day-to-day life has been changed by the lockdown?
Well, on one hand, I was already coaching some of my clients online. So obviously now all the clients have to be online. Also, the team workshops have to be moved online. And that's, of course, creates some good opportunities as well. What I find with Zoom, the breakout rooms make it so clearer and actually provide almost new opportunities.
Yes.
So I think for my work, yes, as I think with all works, it amplifies the issues that need to be worked on. So, it amplifies, for example, the need for creativity, to think how to serve the clients in a more creative way.
Yes.
It's also redefines, time is important concept for everyone, and it redefines how we use time. And I like this, it makes it so clear. It's like, oh, I have the problem that I'm so busy, and actually even though I'm working from home, I can be late for dinner or doing this, because I'm so busy. And then I stop and ask myself, well, is it a new problem or is it a recurring problem? And I think this time, because on one hand, the paradigm has shifted, but on the other hand, particular habits and problems, they just keep on recurring. So as a result, it's an opportunity to relook at them and thinking, well, how am I creating that? So from that point of view, I think this time is a time of amplification, and and all this like uncertainty. Well, it actually makes it so clear as well. How much certainty do we normally have?
Yes.
Or is it just illusion of certainty which we think we have?
Yeah, that's a really, really very profound thought, because I suppose we feel it's amplified because everyone, for the first time, everyone is experiencing almost a common uncertainty. We're sort of all faced with with the same problem, whereas usually we all have our little individual problems, and our uncertainties are very personal to us. So do you think that has caused you to reflect about some of the things you talked about, the way you use time, and the feeling of busyness? Do you feel that this feeling of a very global sense of this uncertainty has made you reflect on your own working life more than you would have otherwise done?
Yes, probably. You're right, because one doesn't have an excuse of transport problems or of the meetings outside, because it's of course I'm in charge of how I create my meetings, and I do appreciate that a lot of my clients for whom the meetings are set up in a particular way by organization. But again, where do you have the power to ask for what you need?
Yes.
And express what would serve you the best to make you productive so that you contribute, and what stops one to expressing that, and do you really know yourself what actually you need? So from that point of view, 100%, that's situation amplifies it. And I really like what you said about commonality of our experiences, because it always exists. It's just covered by individual problems. But what this crisis does, it actually shows exactly how common it is. Look at this. Prince Charles got coronavirus, or had coronavirus. Boris had it, So it's like, it's almost demonstration of compassion, of commonality, of human experience.
Yeah, I really like that. And tell me about how your family is coping with it, because it feels like for your work, you know, life, it hasn't massively changed things because you were probably working from home a bit before anyway. But what about the rest of your family? How are they dealing with this lockdown?
So I have two teenage girls and the husband. So and obviously for girls, you know, the online education is a change, and also the fact that they now have to spend more time with each other, which is, you know, which I think would contribute to the deepening of their relationship. Luckily, they already had a good relationship, but also defining their own schedule. And yes, of course, there is with online learning. So it's kind of more responsibility is on them, and I think it's a great what we'll also notice, it's a great opportunity for them to contribute to household duties, and actually in a way more opportunities to spend for us together as a family, you know, rather than being busy with driving girls around to various of their activities, right?
Yeah.
So it creates opportunities. So my husband worked from home before, but again, you know, it challenges and rethinking of how to run a business without having an access to external meetings. And yeah, and again, it's amplifications of commonality, of compassion, but also, you know, the fundamental fears, actually the basic fears, whether you are a CEO or delivering food, the fears fundamentally of humans are and needs are very similar. It's just they express differently, right?
Yes.
And it's also interesting now to see, like, those actually people who delivering food to us. Obviously, you know, the medical staff. You know, I saw the post lady. You know, those are the heroes, right? So it's actually, I think it's beautiful that, you know, this whole admiration is moving from the film stars or from celebrities to the people who are actually helping us to continue our life, right?
Yeah, I so agree, and I think it's almost a rebalancing of things that have gone a bit too, you know, skewed in the sort of in favor of the people with all the money and, you know, maybe all the sort of outward trappings of fame and success to, as you say, the people who are the genuine heroes. And also I wanted to share something I read which really gladdened my heart, that, you know, in India, the river Ganges, you know, the river Ganga, has been, obviously it's the holy river, and people go in droves to bathe and, you know, wash their sins, and the water of the river has not been even fit for bathing for many years. And now, because of the lockdown and because nobody goes there, it is fit enough to drink.
Wow,
Can you
amazing.
believe that? And literally just in the space of maybe 4 weeks, less than that. So I think it just tells us what is possible if we just allow it to emerge, and we stop smothering it with the other stuff that we've just got so used to doing, and, you know, maybe we think that there is no other way. So yeah, I thought I'd share that with you. And I think for
Beautiful
me,
thing.
what I'm really interested is from your perspective, you know, both obviously as a coach, but also from your personal perspective, some of the things that you're discovering, you know, within the family, maybe, you know, your wider family connections, you know, which of those bits are you going to hang on to even when we get back to a more normal way of life?
Mm, mm. Yeah, I guess what's becoming very clear is the feeling truly through what are actually we are in control of and what we are not. And as a result, focusing on what we can in control, and that's normally actually fundamentally comes to the place of ourselves.
Yes, I agree.
And I think that's definitely something that helps me dealing, whenever I start, our brain, we have this tricky brain, right, that goes in rumination and catastrophizing, and that's what makes us human, right? If when a zebra is eating grass and a lion appears, zebra runs away, and if it's super fast zebra, imagine she ran away, and lion is gone. 10 minutes later, she will be eating grass on a different field. If we see a lion, and we're eating a croissant on the streets of London, it's unlikely that once a lion disappears out of our sight, we'll continue eating our croissant or something. So what I'm just thinking, because it's like brain naturally goes into this catastrophizing and rumination stages, and then just stop and ask myself, well, actually, what am I doing? Am I in control of that? Is it the business of the universe or God? And if I'm not in control of that, what makes me think that me spending the energy on those thoughts would make any reasonable contribution to my own well-being or to the well-being of the family around me?
Yeah. I love that. And I think so many people who are so anxious and fearful about what's going on, could really tap into that sense of, there's no point really worrying about things that are just not, our gift to control. So obviously when you read the news or you listen to the news, it's all very, very grim and serious. And, every day the death toll numbers, make us all shudder. How are you and your family sort of trying to deal with that negativity and maybe make light of some of that fairly grim situation?
Well, yeah, and I would say that yes, like say on the point that you said, the anxieties which appear. I think what is very important is to acknowledge that it's normal, because and don't take me wrong, I do periodically. I'm not naturally quite anxious person. It's just I have been developing the techniques of dealing with that. And what I can say, it's like it's important also to think and allow yourself that period of feeling like that, right?
Yes.
Because otherwise, what I notice and what I see also in my clients is this beating up. Like say I was working on slowing down to speed up, and what I realized, and coming back to concept of busyness, that say, for example, if I go for a run early morning in a forest, that I would be listening to my audiobook and doing again 5 things at once. And then I thought, wait a minute, actually it's my coach highlighted to me. He said, wait a minute, so you keep on running permanently at a high speed. So I forced myself to stop listening to audiobook, and then I'm noticing what's around me. And then at that moment, I started hearing my own thoughts. And then I realized I was telling myself off for not completely doing it properly to my own standards, because I was meant to feel the air on my face, the birds singing, and the smell. And I was thinking, what am I doing? I keep on bashing myself up, and that's what, so you asked how to deal with news. Well, first of all, we don't watch news on TV at all. I tend to check. So initially I was checking the data probably a couple times a day. Now I try to limit it to once a day. So literally, it's important to be informed, and it's important to be prepared, knowing what's happening, of course. But it doesn't need to be the updates every 5 minutes or every hour. They don't contribute to anything.
Yeah.
They just aggravate the fear, right? So, you know, my gift is I have been always very strong in creating plans for the worst case scenario. That's what you do in credit business, as you know. But it doesn't mean to suffocate yourself with the fear of catastrophizing.
There was this great term that I came across a while ago called, we know paranoia is where you worry about something constantly and, sort of drive yourself mad with the worry that something bad's going to happen. So the opposite of that is pronoia, where you think about a negative scenario and you think, well, what could I do to prepare for that negative scenario? So if it did happen, then, I would be prepared. So for example, I always worry when I'm going on holiday that I'm going to forget to pack something important like my passport or something like that. So rather than worry and allow that to happen and then say, oh no, I knew this was going to happen, you maybe pack your passport in your bag the night before, so you don't have that risk. And same with what I was telling you about my webinar recording. I forgot to record it. So rather than now worry that I'm going to do it again, this time I'm just going to automatically record it so that I don't have that. And I think certainly we can use that ability to catastrophize, as you put it, and turn it into a positive. Say, well, okay, if that does happen, how prepared am I to deal with that? And I think that way you feel less helpless should that happen. So that maybe that's something that we could all learn to do.
That's true. Exactly. To look at your habits, which would give one more comfort.
Exactly. So tell me a little bit more about how you're actually, so you talked about running and you also said you went cycling with your family this morning. So being outdoors is clearly one of the things you're all doing. What else are you doing at home to kind of spend the time in a more fruitful way?
Well, we now have lunches and dinners together, which is a very good way. And so that's probably kind of the biggest change as well. This time together makes a difference, and of course cooking together creates a change as well.
And these are memories that hopefully are going to stay with your children in particular, well after all this is gone.
Yes. And I think it's very important for children. That life is full of uncertainties, and our children have been very lucky in being raised in quite protected environment. But in a way, life is much more complex than that, and I think this time makes it very clear. And also, I think a lot of people will develop the techniques of how to deal with uncertainty and how to deal with fear, and also how to be more compassionate to others. And of course, there is, and accept that there is a lot of pain, there is a lot of grief, and accept that it's important to feel those feelings before moving on, right? And it's all what I think. That's what builds the resilience, and then even more important, it's adaptability. So so I work together with my actually former client in a business called Adapter, and that's like adaptability is even more important.
Absolutely.
It's how do we adjust to deal with new environment and to deal with new circumstances. And you moved from country to country, right? So that actually this even changing country, it increases your adaptability. Dealing with crisis increases your adaptability.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think this is a great example of seeing that happen across the globe. It's not just isolated to a particular industry. And we've seen this happen, in the previous bear markets, where different industries have come under a lot of pressure and they've been forced to either adapt or die. We've seen that with the retail sector and the online, competitors coming and eating their lunch. But this is going to be interesting. So I'm interested in whether you have any sort of sense of how business and the economy is going to evolve post this pandemic. I mean, in your conversations with leaders, what are they saying? How are they feeling about what's going to happen in the future?
Right. It's a very good question, Ro. And some of the best businesses were created during the times of Great Depression. As we know, great recessions, right? So some of really creative visionary leaders whom I have been coaching, it's amazing how they look a situation as an opportunity. It's almost what's the goal that was important for you before, but you didn't have might be time to spend on it, and as a result, it just kind of was there, and it's going to become even more important when this is over. And what can you do in dealing with that?
Yeah.
What opportunities are you seeing? And also really focusing on what do your clients need, right? And that can be an opportunity to actually really deepen your relationships with your clients as a business, right? Understanding what clients need, how you can support clients.
Yeah.
And the team, right? So because if the businesses who show compassion to their teams as well, they will come out much stronger with much stronger trust built up among employees, right?
True.
And probably high loyalty.
Yes.
But of course, there is a lot of pain in the process. So it's not, it's kind of dealing with a stage of chaos is very important. I was speaking to another leader who said, well, we just need, we needed to think, obviously, furloughing the employees, how to deal, with the reduction of the income, how to deal with the salaries decreases. So there are all those like busy items, and then the next stage, it's like accepting, okay, but actually that's going to be here now for a while, and then like almost preparing, okay, how we're going to create a new environment when we're going to return to work, and with a space in the elevators even, it's kind of like a lot of leaders have to think in a very new way. And so it's like, let's talk about paradigm shift, right? And shifting paradigm creates new ideas.
What about individuals? Because there must be a lot of people who are really worried that their jobs won't be around when this whole thing, comes. Some people may have already been laid off because the businesses couldn't afford to keep them. What do you think how should people think about their future? Because I mean, I can imagine it's really anxious time for them, if they don't have enough income to support their families. So how as individuals would you suggest people look at this whole crisis as an opportunity?
Well, I think first of all, it's acknowledging the first situation, because we need, as human, of course, we need to take care of our basic safety needs and financial needs, and especially in the first stage of chaos, it's so important to address these issues of safety on a personal level, on the family level. So it is important to think, okay, how can I reduce my expenses? What can I do to increase my revenues? And so it's like, who can support me in that? And then, of course, sometimes what I notice, people actually, some people might have not even liked their job. So as a result, it's almost creates a natural opportunity. But of course, it's to get through this process of pain, right?
Yes.
I like the concept of it's happening for me, not to me.
Yes.
It's accepting that we are all on some type of the journey.
Yes.
And looking also back of, there were different crises. A lot of us have dealt with different types of crises, and we came out of that stronger. And looking how have you individually dealt with a crisis before? What have you learned? What supported you? And see, and sometimes looking back at how we dealt before, you think, oh, actually, I survived. I became stronger. That's my differentiating factor. That's my gift. And that's my journey.
It's taking ownership, isn't it? It's taking ownership of what's happening to you and believing that you can actually find a way around it because you've done it before, perhaps, in a previous crisis. So before we end, I would love to sort of revisit that thing we were talking about, gratitude, and, something that we talked about, and I found it so, so insightful and, really fresh thought that nobody had ever mentioned to me before. So tell me about how you look at gratitude and how we should maybe be wary of gratitude becoming a limitation in itself.
I think, of course, and on one hand, I told my girls, for example, when you wash your hands, rather than actually singing happy birthday, think of 3 things you're grateful for. And what I mean is like grateful, small, it could be small things, I'm grateful I had an orange, or I'm grateful I have warm water, so it's kind of like the small things. It's important, it's very important to remember, and that generates positive feelings in us, right? On the other hand, I think when gratitude covers fears, when it comes from the place of, oh, I should be really grateful I have a job. And it's kind of noticing within yourself, is it coming from the place of fear? Or is it coming from the place of genuinely being grateful? Because, and then if it comes from the place of fear, because like thinking of my situation when I was in banking then. So I was grateful for having that job. But that was covering this deep fear of losing it. So I think that's a difference, because, saying being grateful for having experienced it, it's different from fear of losing it.
Yes. I think that's a really helpful way to think about it. It also feels like sometimes gratitude comes as a result of feeling an obligation that, I should be grateful because so many other people don't have this, and I should feel grateful that I have a house to live in. But it doesn't stop you from wanting more. So so I suppose what I'm taking away from what you're saying is that you can be grateful for the things you have, but it doesn't mean that that's all you can have and that you're not allowed to want something different or want more, right?
Yes, and also actually what comes to me right now is also tiny step of courage. Yeah. Because, we look, for example, at firemen, at doctors, nurses, even, people who deliver food right now, courageous. And I remember thinking, being on trading floor, and I hear actually a lot from clients I coach in the city. They say, well, I'm not saving the world. So they almost giving themselves an excuse of not, or I'm not in a job where I need to be courageous, right? But actually, what is a tiny step of courage? where you are right now to deal with this fear, like say, noticing this fear and think, okay, but actually I can be courageous in my own way. Might be speaking up for someone or speaking up for yourself, and thinking, basically using tiny acts of courage as a concept to help being, stuck.
Yes, yes. So it's really kind of comparing yourself to yourself rather than always looking to see, well, someone else is more courageous than me, or I have more than someone else, I should be grateful. So it's kind of really becoming a little bit more, taking ownership of your own journey and using yourself as your own benchmark and always want to do better. Well, we could talk about this for ages, couldn't we? Because I love it. But listen, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and there's lots of really, great nuggets for us to think about. And I think the key, maybe I want to sort of end by asking you to, leave our viewers with sort of one key message that you would like them to have from you.
Well, I guess my main message right now would be to think what actually you are in control of and what is your business versus business of others versus business of universe. And that's Byron Katie's concept, but I really like it. It really resonates with me. And just thinking of that, but when we spend time in somebody else's business, we take time away from us.
Yes.
And once we've taken care of ourselves, then we can give this positive energy to others rather than transforming our fears. So it's basically think, what can I do? That's probably the main thing.
Yes, yes. I love that. And that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Tatiana. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I wish you and your family the best of lockdown.
Thank you.
And look forward to meeting you in person on the other side of this, whenever that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.